All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Miss Danielle, and I'm here at my office in Forest Park, and we're going to do some experiments today, all about sound. And so for today's experiments, if you have them, we might need a glass jar and a pencil, some rubber bands, and a balloon. It can be already blown up. I just haven't blown up mine yet. If you have to go run and get those, I'm going to talk about a few other things. You can go run and get them, and then come back and join me before I actually start the science. These science experiments are being presented as part of Middletown Month, which is happening November. So we're in day 2. It's gone all virtual this year with some in-person sporting events, and we have Middletown Day bags still for sale. So it comes preloaded this year, so you get the tote, and then you get swag from sponsors and a fleece blanket, and they are $5 for sale at Forest Park, Monday through Friday. And the proceeds of those sales go to the charity that the mayor has chosen, Infinite Love for Kids Fighting Cancer. I have my assistant, my co-host, John, with me, who is both muting the phones and answering anything in chat. So if you haven't used WebEx before, this is a WebEx event, which means I can't see your videos. But if you do have a question or something to tell me, you can type it into the chat log, and John will make sure that it gets across. Hopefully everyone's back from their frantic search for rubber bands, so that we can get started with some experiments about sounds and where sounds come from and how we hear them, and how we can make some musical instruments. If you've done anything with me before, maybe summer camp, maybe events at the library, you might have seen this before. This is a little kazoo that's pretty easy to make. It's an excellent noisemaker, especially when everyone's cooped up in the house together. And the secret behind this is going to be hard to see, but there was a long rubber band that stretches along the outside, but also along the inside. And that rubber band is the key to that annoying sound. And you can't see it very well, but if I tried with just 2 sticks, it doesn't make any sound except me blowing. So let's take a closer look at what happens. What's happening with that rubber band to make all that noise? So if you have a rubber band and you can wrap it around your jar, or I'm going to try wrapping it around a Tupperware, and then give it a pluck. Now we can hear a sound. It's a little different than the sound in our kazoo, but we still have some nice sounds. And now look closely at the rubber band as you're plucking it. You'll see that when I pluck it, it shakes back and forth really fast. It vibrates. And those vibrations are what are making that sound. So it sounds a little different on this than it does on my jar. Or, and these are all the same size rubber bands, if I stretch it along this metal tray, we get a different sound. So the length that the rubber band gets stretched, whether it's long, or medium, or kind of short, are going to change the sounds. We have a very low sound with our long rubber band, and a higher sound with our tiny rubber band, and we have an in-between one. So you can experiment with your rubber band, if you find one, or a hair tie, or anything elastic, with wrapping it around different things, see what kind of sounds they make. And you make a little instrument with that. Now, most people, when playing an instrument, don't have a whole bunch of things. They want to put into one. And so the way you can get different sounds on the same instrument, let's use this one, is by changing the width of a rubber band. So I have two different rubber bands here. I have a nice thick one and I have this skinny one. And now I have two different sounds. And now I have a little guitar. And we have the basics of an instrument. So any container will work if the rubber bands don't collapse it. Some paper boxes get squished too easily. And you want something that's open on one side. This is, in musical instruments, it's often called a resonance chamber. That's just amplifying the sound a bit. So these vibrations are a little louder because the sound is bouncing off the back of that. Carefully undo my rubber bands without squishing myself. And so those vibrations are what are happening on the inside of our kazoo. And the length of that rubber band, if I had a really long kazoo, would be lower. And if I had a really tiny kazoo, it would be higher. And those same ideas are used for making real harmonicas, which provide a whole range of sound and sound a little prettier than my rubber band kazoo. That was one instrument. Now, the next thing, so those vibrations are also how we talk. So if you take your hand and you put it right against your throat and try and say something, and you say hello, or say something really high and something really low, and see if you can feel how those vibrations change in your throat. That's how your voice is making the sound. That for when we speak or when we scream or when we hum or when we sing, it's all from the vibrations in our neck. Those are our vocal cords. Now, the next experiment we're going to try is making some sound with our jar. So if you have your jar, and if you have a pencil or something to whack it with, you could whack it with a craft stick. I have this little mallet, makes it louder. With your pencil, we have another tone. And this is caused by the vibrations. We just can't see them. So the glass is vibrating and it's echoing in our resonance chamber and making some sound. So we have one tone here. And then if we had a really big jar, we'll get a different sound. Or if we have a little tiny jar, we get 3 different sounds. And we can play a 3-tune song. Hot Cross Buns, I believe. So we're going to try and make a little tiny xylophone by changing the size of that resonance chamber and how much of the glass it can echo. So I have a bunch of baby food jars. And we heard an empty one. Now let's hear what a full one sounds like. Now this water is purple just so that you can see it. You don't have to use purple water. But if you end up with a bunch of jars of the same size, maybe your family eats a lot of pickles or something, or if you have a baby at home, then you can hear the difference between an empty jar or a full jar. And with the other jars, we can fill up a little slightly less and less and less water to make a little tiny musical xylophone. Xylophones you hit with a mallet, and the metal of them, usually metal, sometimes wood, echoes at different tones. Now I am not tuning mine. Let's see. So we have full, almost full, about halfway. About a third, and then just a little bit. Now let's hear our little scale of all our different tones. And you can make a little xylophone that way and make your own instrument and start your own band. You have one person on the Tupperware guitar and one person on the xylophone. And I bet you can come up with a way to make a drum in a container. Turn it upside down and add some percussion. Or get creative with the things around your house to make some different things. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is how the sound gets from the vibrations of the rubber bands into our ears. And for that, we need our balloon. Pour the water out, otherwise I'll dump it all over the desk. And I'll have purple water everywhere. Always good to clean up your experiments as soon as you are done with them. Okay. So, when we're thinking about how sounds go from the vibration source into our ears, we have to think about the air. And today's a good day to think about the air because it was so windy today. Because the air isn't just empty. Just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not full of stuff. It's full of gases, a lot of nitrogen, and of course some oxygen, that's what we breathe, but other things too, carbon dioxide's in there, and lots of smaller gaseous elements and compounds. And those things can move, just like solids, the things we can see can move, or liquids like our purple water. And when those things move, we can feel them when they move with the wind, or when we fan ourselves. But they can also, those movements can move sounds from the source of vibration to our eardrums, which our brain can interpret into, oh, that's a sound. And that's how, even if you're across the field, that I can hear you when you shout at me. It's because the air in between us can carry those vibrations. And to explain this a little better, we're going to put some air into a balloon. Now, right now, I just opened the balloon. It's being held with the same amount of air as it is outside, as it is in the rest of this room. But by blowing it up, I'm going to force a lot more air molecules inside this balloon. And so it'll be a lot more crowded in there. And so it's going to transmit the sound a little better. So if your balloon isn't blown up, start to blow it up. If it is blown up, then please thank the person who did blow it up or who provided it for you, because sometimes it makes my head hurt. Think we can go bigger? A little bigger. I think that's all I can do. So, carefully tie it off. Hopefully don't pop it. Now our balloon is really full of air, right? The pressure of all the air molecules that I pushed into there are really stretching out the latex of the balloon, the plastic of the balloon. Right? So it's really stretched it out, and I can feel all that air in there when I squeeze it gently. Let me gently squeeze your balloon. And if your balloon deflates after a few days, that's because either from the barrier of the plastic or through the hole, some of the air has come out, and it's returned back into the general air, and so there's not as much pressure inside here. And so if we tap our balloon, you might hear a slight tapping. If I tap a unblown balloon, if I tap a balloon with air in it, you don't really hear anything. Maybe a little of your finger hitting the plastic. But if you hold your balloon up to your ear and then tap it, you can hear that tap so much louder as it echoes through the balloon and all of those air molecules. So it's traveling through all those really squished up inside the balloon, and you hear it a lot louder. I think it also gave me some static. So the air is what's moving the sound from where I'm tapping it into my ear. The balloon's getting away. And sound, and that's it. So if there's more stuff in the air, sound's going to travel better. So we can hear sounds from further away on really foggy, still days, like it was last week when we had all that fog. And then on bright, clear days where it's really windy, there's going to be both the wind moving the air around, and sound's just not going to travel as far. Sound travels even further if you're underwater. Blue whales are both really, really loud, louder than a plane, and they make their calls at really low frequencies, even lower than human ears can hear. And the combination of those two, plus the water that they're in, means their calls can travel almost 500 miles. That's like longer than New Jersey is. New Jersey is like less than 200 miles. We can go up. That's how. So if a blue whale's up by New York, and we were underwater, you could hear it all the way in Philadelphia. You could hear it probably all the way down in Washington, D.C. That's how far those blue whale calls can travel. I mean, imagine if you're a blue whale, you're trying to find a friend, the call would have to travel a long ways because the ocean is really, really big. 500 miles might not even be that close. There might be no one around within. So our last experiment is going to be about stopping sound. So in fancy audio terms, these are noise-canceling headphones. But my challenge to you is to try and make something that can stop sound, using what you've learned about those vibrations and how they move through the air into your ears. What could you develop to stop sound? So I came up with my ideas. You'll come up with your own. I had to break out the ear warmers this morning because it was so cold with all the wind. And I thought that might be a good base to some noise-canceling headphones. Now, as it is, I can hear just fine. If John started talking to me, I would be able to hear, because these don't really block sound much. It's got by my ears, and the fabric isn't that thick. And so nothing's blocking the sound vibrations from reaching my ears. But I had 3 ideas of materials I could stuff in to make some earplugs and muffle the sound so that I wouldn't hear it. Here are my 3 ideas. Maybe I could use bubble wrap. I got a lot of packages lately. That seems kind of cool. Maybe I could use some felt, just make it more fabric. Or maybe I could use some cotton balls, right? Isn't that a thing? People stick cotton balls in their ears to try and stop sound. And I thought, those are my 3 ideas. And I think the cotton balls might work the best, but I'm not sure. So when we're not sure about something, we can design an experiment, and we could come up with some tests. So how to test that you don't hear something? Well, first you need something to hear. And so my co-host, John, is going to play a sound. John, can you play the sound? It's not a very exciting sound. So hopefully you can hear that tone too. Oh, you can definitely hear it now. It's just kind of an annoying buzz sound. All right, we can stop that. We're going to test if I can hear that. And so he's going to start really low on 0. And I'm going to raise my hand when I can hear that sound. So let's try it with nothing, with just my ears. Maybe you'll hear it before me. You might have better ears than I do. Okay, go. What number was that? So when he was turning the volume up very slowly with a keyboard to make it go up 1 digit at a time, and I could hear it at level 8. And so that gives me something that I can count. When you do a test, you need some data, something that you can count. So we're going to experiment with my 3 different earplugs. And we're going to see at what number do I hear it when I have bubble wrap in my ears? At what level do I hear it when I have felt? And what level do I have it at cotton balls? Now, when we're designing an experiment, we want most things to be the same. So the sound's going to be the same. I'm going to sit the same distance from my speaker, which is right here. And it's going to be my ears testing. So if we tried somebody with better hearing or with worse hearing, that would change the results. So we're going to keep everything the same except what I'm stuffing in my ears. We're also going to do each test more than 1 time. We're not going to do bubble wrap just once. We're going to do it 3 times. And felt we'll do 3 times, and cotton balls we'll do 3 times. All right. Are we ready, John? You gave me a thumbs up. I'm going to put on my fancy hand gear. And I'm going to Roll the bubble wrap up. And stick it in my ears. So I'm blocking that ear. You look super cool as a scientist. That's one of the advantages. All right, I gotta get my pen so I can record my data as it happens. So this is the bubble wrap test. I'm probably talking louder. And this is so for the first test. All right, go. What number was that?
10.
So 10. Not that much better than I could hear just normally. My ears are getting warm. Okay, go ahead. Oh, it's always nice when our results get consistent. That's another thing, is I'm not looking at the numbers. John's looking at the numbers. Because you can often, your brain can confuse yourself and make you think that you hear it when you really don't. And if you already know the answer is 10, you might hear it at 10 again. You might need a fellow scientist to help you with your experiment. All right, last one. Oh, all right. All right, now we gotta switch to the felt. Need those anymore. So I've got the felt rolled up. My little burrito. This is even warmer, John. All right. Go. Oh. Gets points for being warm, though. Ready? Okay. Okay. Ooh. All right. So that time we had 8, 8, and 10. And that's why we're going to do this a couple times. It's because you won't always get the same results. So if we only did it once and we got 10 for both, we might think that these were the same. But by doing multiple tests, we can see that the felt was not quite as good because I could hear an 8. And the bubble wrap, I could always only hear on 10. All right, last one. Don't need felt. Yeah, a nice handful of cotton balls. Into my ear. I'll put one like all the way in my ear. And then I'll put the rest all the way around in my. You should only do this with soft things. We're not sticking pencils. We're not sticking Q-tips into our ears. We're just putting soft things on the outside of our ears. Ah, John, it's going to block my vision. Right, it's a hearing test, not a vision test. Okay. Yep.
Whoa.
Ooh. All right. Oh, there's still cotton stuck in my ear. All right. Let's move this cotton balls away. So, my results. We just have a little math. And lots of science has a little math. But it's not hard. 10 plus 10 plus 10 makes 30. The harder part is writing numbers upside down. 8 plus 8 plus 10. Well, if I use my doubles facts, 8 and 8 make 16. And 16 plus 10 makes 26. Suppose that. And the cotton balls, we have 10 plus 12 plus 10. Well, I can add up all the 10s first. So We get 30 plus that extra 2, 32. So from my initial experiment, we had bubble wrap came in at a 30, felt a 26, and cotton balls at 32. That means that cotton balls were the best insulator to protect my ears from sound. They would get the best rating as sound protection. But I bet there would be ways to improve it. Maybe if we used more cotton ball, or what would happen if we used less cotton ball, or if we use something different to hold the cotton balls to our ears, or maybe there's something besides cotton balls that would work even better. And we could use this data and what we learned here to make further experiments. So that's what I have as a challenge for you guys, is to work and figure out how you could make the best noise-canceling headphones or earmuffs for yourself, and devise an experiment, something that you can measure about how much sound you can hear. If you have a television and you could click the remote and see the numbers, then you could use that. Or even if you have a radio with a dial, you could use that. You could ask someone to shout at you at different levels, or you can use distance. So if someone rings a bell from really far away where you can't stand, where you can't hear it, and then they slowly walk towards you ringing the bell, at what distance can you hear that bell? And that gives you something to measure. When you need to analyze your results, you need something measurable. So either the loudness of the sound or the distance of the sound are two different things that we can measure. If you do make some really cool headphones, I'd love to see your designs. You can email me at recreation@middletownnj.org, or you can add them to our Facebook page, or I don't know, send them by passenger pigeon. I'm happy to see them however you get to them. We do have more science happening this week. On Wednesday, we're going to meet again at 3:15, and we're going to be playing with bubbles. So for that one, you need some clean containers from the recycling. Whether it's an old butter container or an old milk carton or anything that you've had, a peanut butter jar that you've used up recently. You could keep your glass jar nearby, but some kind of clean container, a straw, some dish soap, and a little water. And with those, we're going to do some different things with bubbles and figure out how bubbles work, and how the gases interact with that and the liquids. And there's some really cool science that we're going to do, and then we're going to give you some bubble challenges for that as well. If you can't make it, or if you can't make any of our videos, they will be up on our YouTube channel for Middletown Month, and that is middletownnj.org/Middletown Month. I believe John is writing that down in the script. He thought it was lame because I don't have any graphics, but I have it on paper. So my science lessons will all be up there, and there's a lot of other local Middletown entertainment happening there this month. We're also hosting in-sports challenges. So that's where I'm headed next. This week is pitch, hit, and run. So that's today, Wednesday, and Thursday at different parks around the area. Next week we'll have soccer. And then after that is basketball, and then football is for the fourth week right before Thanksgiving. So those are for ages 6 and up. They are $5 to compete, plus it's also our canned food and toy drive. And when you register, you'll pick your time slot and your location. I believe that's the end of what we've got going on. And I'll be here for the rest of the week. And then I'm also doing a crafts program the first week in December. That one you do need to register for, and it won't be online because it's not part of Middletown Month. If you have any questions, then you can call us at the Recreation Department, send us an email, get out those passenger pigeons. But until next Wednesday, goodbye.